Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ricky Wascher. I own and operate Cimamusic Mix and Mastering here in Tucson, Arizona. I record, mix, and master musical projects. And what I wanted to do is not necessarily begin uploading tutorials. There are a lot of people doing that already. I just wanted to kind of give people an idea of how I mix. Specifically in this example, it'll be how I mix a drum kit for a pop song. This is a song I recorded back a few years ago, and I'm just remixing and using some different strategies. So I want to take you through how I mix, how I'm mixing the drum kit in this particular rendition of the song. So when we went to the studio, we cut the drum tracks, and we had a kick drum mic, a snare mic on the top of the snare, on the bottom of the snare, a hi-hat mic, a couple of tom mics, and an overhead mic. So we really didn't have much else. So what I did is I duplicated the kick, and I duplicated the snare mic, and added a couple of buses and some effects. So I'll show you how I added stuff to treat the drum kit and just give it a little more presence and life in this particular song. Now, first of all, the kick, I didn't really like the way it was tracked, so I went ahead and used a sample, and this is from Tune Tracks Easy Drummer. It's called Indie Folk. It's a really nice, folky, big, fat kick drum, and as you can see, I EQ'd it here. I pulled up the filter to about 80 hertz. It was just a very boomy drum kit, kick drum, so I got rid of a lot of those low-end frequencies that just didn't really fit the song. I pulled down 150 hertz here because this is just a frequency that hurts my head, and this kick drum just had a lot of it. And I pulled down about 5 dB at 500 just to get rid of the boxiness. I use the LA2A most of the time on the kick drum. I just love the way it sounds. Just no compressor fattens up a kick drum, at least to my ears, the way an LA2A does. So it's fairly compressed, as you can tell. Now, this is actually a duplicate of this. And what I did also was to add Drumagog, and I added a sample. It's called a 303 sample. Now, this is an extremely low frequency, so instead of EQing it, I use the sample, and what it does is it just gives the kick drum a lot more fatness and punch, and it just really just gives the bottom end just a lot of presence, and really it's something that you feel more than you hear, and I'll show you that in just a bit. Now the snare, I gated it significantly. And as far as the EQ treatment, I use the Shep 73, which is a nice emulation of the Neve 1073 preamp, and it's an EQ, and it's just awesome. So I pull up just a little bit of the high end, and that's it. I mean, I don't have a lot going on. I wanted this drum kit to sound natural, so I didn't want to just EQ the tar out of it. I'm using the Bluey to compress it, so it's got pretty slow attack, relatively slow, really quick release. It's maybe at the most backing out about 10 dB of the snare, so it's actually fairly compressed. And I added some of this transient monster. It really brings out the transients and gives the snare a lot of pop, and I did the same thing for the kick drum also. Now the snare bottom, I just threw a Sheps on there. No gate, nothing. I just left everything open and bleeding, and it just kind of glues everything together very nicely, kind of brings all the elements of the kit together. I like separation in the drums, but not too much. So this I just really packed on the high end just to give the snares more sizzle, and it's also driven a bit here, as you can tell. This is actually a duplicate of this. And what I do here, instead of using an EQ to make extreme EQ moves, I gated it here. I do this. I just really, really throw up the high end and the low end and bring this in just a little bit under the snare so that this is actually fattening up the snare instead of, again, throwing an EQ right on the the snare channel strip and just making all these really extreme EQ moves. So this is my EQ right here. That's giving my snare a lot of that body and sizzle. And I've got that compressed as well. So the hi-hat is pretty simple. I just backed off a lot of the high end, or a lot of the low end, I'm sorry, through a high-pass filter at about 650 hertz. I don't like my hi-hats to be too chunky. I like them to be to sizzle a little more. Lightly compressed, real quick attack and release, just to make sure that when the drummer starts like really banging on the hi-hat, it doesn't really get too out of control. Toms are, oh, let me show you this also. I use the Puig Tech to boost the high end. Now the toms are also very lightly treated. I have the high pass at about 40 hertz, backed off a little bit at about 130. I was just getting some really funky stuff going on here with the rack tom. Backed out about 10 dB at 400, just get rid of the boxiness, and boosted, have a shelf at about 7K, just to give so you can hear a little bit more of the stick. Now the floor tom is pretty much treated the same way, and these are pretty fairly compressed. It's not too obvious, just again when just a little bit of dynamic control here. Now overheads also, I bring up the high pass filter. I just don't like the low stuff here. I like my overheads to sound like, to really just accentuate the cymbals more than anything. And I have also the overheads are lightly compressed, just enough so again when the drummer goes crazy on the snare or like really bangs on the overheads, it just comes up maybe a couple 3 dB, just something to keep everything under control in the overhead mic. Now instead of this particular capture had a lot of high end in it, and instead of using an EQ to get rid of that high end, I like to use de-essers. De-essers sound really just beautiful on overheads. It just sounds more natural. So that's a really cool trick I learned by watching a lot of the mixers that I like to watch. So on my drum room, which is something I created, there wasn't a drum room mic. So I actually I summed the drum kit over here into one track, and I just slammed the heck out of it. I think I used an L1 limiter for this one. And I also used a reverb just to kind of simulate a room mic. And the way I treated that was, of course, again, I used the high pass, and I brought in a low pass filter also, the 8K. I don't want this to accentuate my high end. This is more of just the impact of the room, kind of make the drum kit sound far away, bring this up and just accentuate, kind of like the mid frequencies more or less. I don't like a lot of build up here, especially in the cymbals. And on my drum bus, I have the NLS bus plug-in, which adds some nice analog saturation. It warms up the drum kit. And I use the API 2500 compressor as my drum bus compressor, which sounds just absolutely amazing. It really glues everything together, makes the drum kit sound great. And I've got some additional things going on here. I bust just my drum elements, snare, kick, and toms into this bus right here. And I use this saturation plugin. It's from URS, and this is probably my favorite saturation plugin out of everything on the market. It just sounds incredible. So I use this a lot on vocals, on drums, on percussion, anything that I feel like saturation is needed. Basically what this does is it just fattens up the drum kit. It makes it sound warmer and rounder, and just really brings a lot of punch to it. And I have a plate reverb that I use very lightly, also on a little bit of on kick and on my snare and toms. I never use reverb on any type of cymbals. So let me play this for you just to give you an idea of how the drum kit sounds. And what I'm going to do when I'm playing this is I'm going to bring in and out the saturation plugin just so you can hear what difference it makes. Now something else I want to do is I want to show you what the 303 does. And hold on, let me get rid of that. Okay. So you can't really hear it. And if you're listening to this on good speakers or headphones, you're going to kind of hear that very low frequency boom. So this is actually, you can't even perceive this, but it is very evident when the drum kit is playing. It just really, again, it just really rounds out the kick and gives the drum kit a little more presence. Now I'm going to play this in context with the rest of the song so you can hear what the drum kit sounds like. So that's it. That is pretty much the end of the drum mix. There's still some elements that need to be completed here in the song, but again, I just want to take you through kind of how I work, my workflow, some of the strategies I use to EQ my drums and to give them presence and glue them together and fatten them up and hopefully. Hopefully, if you're interested in recording, you'll reach out to me. My phone number is 520-313-4852. My website is cimamusicstudio.com. And my Facebook page, you can find us or find me there too. It's facebook.com/cimamusicstudio. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you. Peace.